whole families slaughtered at night. The year is 1922. Bavaria, Germany, a land scarred by the recent Great War and haunted by age-old superstitions. In the isolated farmstead of Hinterkaifeck, Andreas Gruber, his wife Casilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her 2 young children, Joseph and Casilia, lived a simple, almost medieval existence, cut off from the nearest village. Their lives were dictated by the rhythms of the land, the planting, the harvest, the endless cycle of rural toil. But something was amiss. Weeks before the gruesome discovery, Andreas Gruber spoke of finding strange footprints in the snow, leading from the forest to the farm, but never away. He also reported the disappearance of a set of house keys, adding a chilling unease to their already isolated world. The family kept these fears to themselves, unaware that they were not alone, that a silent predator was already circling their vulnerable home. The isolation that defined their lives became their death warrant. Hinterkaifeck was more than just a farm. It was a prison, a place where secrets festered and fears multiplied. The villagers in the nearby town of Waidhofen rarely saw the Grubers, reinforcing the family's sense of being on the edge of existence. Andreas Gruber was known as a stern, unyielding man, a patriarch who ruled his family with an iron fist. Rumors swirled around Victoria, his daughter, whispers of an incestuous relationship, a dark secret that further isolated the family from the community. This toxic atmosphere, a blend of fear, isolation, and whispered accusations, created the perfect breeding ground for tragedy. In the days leading up to the murders, the family dog began barking incessantly for no apparent reason, a primal warning sign that went unheeded. The horrors began sometime in the late hours of March 31st. The perpetrator, armed with a mattock, a tool similar to an axe, crept into the barn. Andreas, Casilia, and Victoria were lured there, perhaps by a staged disturbance or the sound of livestock in distress. One by one, they were struck down, their screams swallowed by the thick walls of the barn and the deafening silence of the night. The killer then moved to the farmhouse, where young Casilia and Joseph lay sleeping in their beds. No one knows if they woke to see their attacker, but they too were brutally murdered, their fragile lives extinguished with the same merciless efficiency. The discovery of the bodies was made days later, on April 4th, by concerned neighbors who noticed the family hadn't been seen attending church. The scene was one of unimaginable carnage. The bodies in the barn were piled on top of each other, a grotesque tableau of death. Inside the house, the children lay in their beds, undisturbed except for the fatal blows. The authorities were baffled. The remote location, the brutal nature of the killings, and the lack of any clear motive painted a disturbing picture. Robbery was quickly ruled out. The family's valuables remained untouched, adding to the perplexing nature of the crime. The initial investigation focused on local vagrants and drifters, men known to roam the countryside in search of work or handouts. The unsettling discovery that the killer had remained at the farm for several days after the murders only deepened the mystery. The neighbors reported seeing smoke rising from the chimney and observed that the livestock had been fed. Someone had not only committed the murders, but had also taken on the grim task of maintaining the farm, a chilling detail that suggested a disturbing level of familiarity and a cold, calculated mind. Suspicion then fell on Lawrence Schlittenbauer, Victoria's husband and the father of young Joseph. Their marriage had been strained, marked by infidelity and resentment. He was known to be a violent man with a history of disputes and aggressive behavior. While he publicly mourned Victoria and his son, some villagers noted a strange detachment in his demeanor. Adding to the suspicion, Schlittenbauer was one of the first to arrive at the farm when the bodies were discovered. Yet, he seemed strangely unsurprised by the scene, almost as if he already knew what awaited them. However, Schlittenbauer had a solid alibi. Several witnesses placed him in a nearby town on the night of the murders. The investigation then turned back to the incestuous rumors surrounding Andreas Gruber and his daughter Victoria. Was the killer a scorned lover, a relative seeking revenge for the alleged abuse? This theory gained traction, fueled by the whispers and innuendo that had long haunted the Gruber family. But concrete evidence remained elusive. As the investigation stalled, the community of Waidhofen became consumed by fear and suspicion. Neighbors eyed each other with mistrust, wondering if the killer was someone they knew, someone they had shared a drink with at the local tavern. The isolation of Hinterkaifeck mirrored the growing isolation within the village, a sense of being cut off from the rest of the world, trapped in a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. The case became a local obsession, a dark shadow that loomed over their lives, poisoning the well of trust and community spirit. Then came the most bizarre twist. During the investigation, it was discovered that the family's maid had quit just months before the murders, claiming that the house was haunted. She spoke of strange noises in the attic, footsteps in the night, and an unsettling feeling that she was being watched. Her testimony, initially dismissed as superstitious rambling, suddenly took on a new significance. Could the killer have been living in the attic, undetected, for weeks, or even months, observing the family, planning their brutal demise? This revelation introduced a terrifying new dimension to the case, transforming it from a crime of passion or revenge into something far more sinister, a meticulously planned act of predatory violence. The authorities meticulously searched the attic, finding nothing but dust and old furniture. But the maid's testimony lingered, a disturbing reminder of the unseen horrors that might have unfolded within the walls of Hinterkaifeck. The case grew colder with each passing year, the trail of evidence fading into the mists of time. Dozens of suspects were investigated, alibis scrutinized, and theories proposed. But the identity of the killer remained shrouded in mystery. The mattock, the murder weapon, was never found, a stark symbol of the unanswered questions that continue to haunt the case. Decades passed, and the Hinterkaifeck murders became a legendary tale, a cautionary story whispered in hushed tones around Bavarian campfires. The farm was eventually torn down, the land plowed over, as if to erase the memory of the unspeakable acts that had occurred there. But the mystery refused to die. New generations of investigators and amateur sleuths have taken up the case, driven by a desire to unravel the truth and bring closure to this century-old enigma. One theory suggests that the killer was a soldier suffering from shell shock, a veteran of the Great War who had been driven to madness by the horrors he had witnessed. This explanation, while speculative, fits the profile of a disturbed individual capable of such extreme violence. The war had left deep scars on the German psyche, creating a fertile ground for psychological trauma and societal unrest. The anonymity of the post-war period provided the perfect cover for someone seeking to disappear, to vanish into the shadows of a fractured nation. Another compelling, if unsettling, theory revolves around the family dynamics themselves. The rumors of incest between Andreas Gruber and Victoria, if true, could have created a web of resentment, jealousy, and suppressed rage within the household. Perhaps one of the family members, driven to the breaking point, finally snapped, unleashing a torrent of violence that consumed them all. This scenario paints a picture of a family imploding from within, a tragedy fueled by secrets and lies. The most chilling aspect of the Hinterkaifeck murders is the apparent lack of motive. The brutality of the crime suggests a deep-seated hatred or a psychopathic indifference to human life. But what could have driven someone to slaughter an entire family, including 2 young children, in such a merciless manner? The absence of a clear motive only deepens the mystery, transforming the case into a haunting reflection of the darkness that can lurk within the human soul. The killer, whoever they were, remains a phantom, a specter of unimaginable evil. To this day, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of Germany's most enduring unsolved mysteries. The case has spawned countless books, documentaries, and podcasts, each attempting to piece together the fragments of evidence and unravel the truth. The lack of a definitive resolution only adds to the allure of the mystery, transforming it into a cultural obsession, a dark stain on the collective memory of Bavaria. The victims of Hinterkaifeck have never received justice, their names forever linked to a crime that defies explanation. The irony of Hinterkaifeck lies in its very name. Hinterkaifeck roughly translates to behind Kaifeck, a place hidden, secluded, and forgotten. The farm, meant to be a sanctuary, a haven from the outside world, became a tomb, a silent testament to the fragility of life and the enduring power of evil. The case serves as a stark reminder that even in the most remote corners of the world, darkness can find its way in, shattering the illusion of safety and leaving behind a legacy of fear and unanswered questions.